serious illness, caregiving, and dying. Who wants to talk about that? Well, at the deep end, we do. And for thousands of families every year, this conversation becomes very real. Where can someone spend their final days with dignity, comfort, and care? Across the country, small community homes for people who are dying, called Omega Homes, are quietly answering that question. Today, we're talking with someone who spent decades helping build and support these homes, and who also brings a deeply personal perspective as a caregiver herself. This is The Deep End. Welcome back. I'm your host, Kelley Scott. Today's guest is Beth Lynn Hoey, Executive Director of the Foundation of the Catholic Diocese of Syracuse. She's previously served as Development Director at Francis House, one of the country's oldest Omega homes. Beth has spent 30 years in nonprofit leadership and fundraising and has been a certified fundraising executive since 2000. She's a consultant to nonprofits specializing in strategic development, board development, and nonprofit management. She also serves on the board of the Omega Home Network, which supports homes across the country providing compassionate end-of-life care. I joined Beth in this work as the executive director, not only of Clare House, but also of the executive director of Omega Home Network. Beth's experience isn't only professional. For more than 2 decades, she's also been a caregiver for her son, Aiden. Beth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, my friend.
I'm so excited to have you here. So let's get our listeners up to speed on you and me. We met through this end-of-life care work connecting back in 2015 when you were still at Francis House.
Correct.
So what's your elevator speech about Francis House? What is it?
Francis House is a home and an extended family where people with terminal illnesses can live their final days, experience the unconditional love of God.
And why did you work there for so long?
It was where I was supposed to be. It was where I was supposed to be. I actually, right out of college, I was from Rochester. And my first 5 years of my career, I worked for a long-term care facility, St. John's Home in Rochester. And when I came to Syracuse, I relocated because, I fell in love. We know how that happens. And I came to my husband's hometown. And one of the very first people I met, who I respected very much for the work in the nonprofit world, said, "Have you ever met Sister Kathleen?" And I said, "Who's Sister Kathleen?" And 3 months from that conversation, I started work at Francis House.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, and I didn't know Sister Kathy quite like you did, but I agree she was a phenomenal person.
Amazing.
So, always been in New York?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Clare House found a sister home. Although it wasn't until a few years later that we chose the name Omega to represent this network, we became a small but mighty band of homes across the country, just really connecting one by one. Were you surprised to find us? Or I know there are all other homes in New York that have provided this kind of care for decades as well.
I was definitely surprised. I was trying to think of that very first phone call that you and I had.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I called you or you called me. But I remember after that first discussion, I hung up the phone and I ran through the house and I said to sister, "Oh my gosh, we've got to we've got to get to Tulsa." And it was so affirming that first time we got together for the conference. I'm doing with air quotes. I think there was 20 of us maybe that all got together
Something like that, yeah.
that first time. And how affirming and surprising and sacred was the moment when we all sat together and I realized that there were people at different parts of the country doing the same exact thing we were, thinking they were alone, thinking that they were the ones that had to be there to solve the gap in care for our friends and family in their last days, and to say, wow, we are doing it right. Because here are all these other beautiful, wonderful, talented people that have come to the same conclusion. And then the sparks of just being open and helping one another was something that I truly have never experienced in my 35 years of working with nonprofits in a nonprofit community.
And that 100%, that was the revelation to me, was that we thought we were all alone. We made it up as we went along. We didn't know until we'd been open for a couple of years that other homes had been doing it longer than we had. And to see that across the country in diverse communities, people saw the same problem, imagined the same solution, and made it work. That was like the biggest revelation to me that, hey, this really is replicable. This is something
Absolutely.
that any community with the commitment and passion for the project couldn't do.
Yeah. And a special perspective. And I say that because there is this attitude in nonprofit communities that we're competing against each other.
Yeah.
It's one of my pet peeves. We don't have enough time for me to tell you all about how I feel about it. But I, in my heart, do not believe there is any such thing as competing against another organization or a ministry. There are plenty of people out there with resources of both time and talent and treasure to support the organizations that are out there. And it becomes this competition, like we think we need to keep our information and our volunteers and our donors to ourselves. And the Omega Home Network community has never been that. It has been for these homes and these ministries coming together, doing the exact same work. There has never been an ounce of competition. It's been nothing but collaborative work, freely collaborative. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about how I did that. And when you're that open and supportive, you can find somebody who says to you, I was there. I understand what you're going through. And they have, and we learn from the successes and then all of our mistakes
Right.
that we share with each other. And it's hard to describe because I have not seen that in a lot of other communities where there is such this yearning to help one another in a very humble way, not I know the best way. This is what I've done. This is what I've learned. And you're constantly learning. And even the homes that have been around for decades are learning things from people who have just opened a home or have a dream of a home.
And that's what shared storytelling is all about as well. I have felt like there is a real purity to this network that is so refreshing, to be outside of a competitive industry kind of culture, and embracing that we all can learn from each other and we're not a threat to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's critical, and it surprises people. It really surprises people coming into it. They're like, what? You're just going to give this to us? You're
Mm-hmm.
just going to let us use your forms. You're going to let us copy your wording. We respect each other's intellectual property and we ask permission, but there's only so many ways to say something, and we're all adhering to the same model and values. So, yeah, there's a lot of repetition of messaging, which I think just makes us stronger.
Absolutely.
So, for listeners who don't really know about Omega Homes, talk about how it's different from hospice care that people might already know about.
Sure. So, hospice care is a program that comes into your home. So, I use the example if your mom was ill and needed care and had a terminal illness and you used hospice, you would call the local hospice program. They all have very much the same mission, a little bit different depending on where you are. And they come into your home to take care of your loved one. The biggest misconception through the years that I have seen, and part of it is exaggerated by the fear to even an apprehension of even talking about death and dying. So people think, oh, when mom gets sick, when she gets really sick, I'm just going to call hospice and they're going to come in and take care of her and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is the way that model of care is, it means that every day, usually, your mom will have a caregiver that comes into your house for a few hours. And the nurse might come once a week to check in. As your loved one progresses in their illness, they'll come more. But the key piece in hospice care is that there has to be a 24-hour person responsible for that person's care.
From the family or friend network, not
Right.
from the hospice network.
Correct. And many of us, unfortunately, cannot do that. Many of us have jobs that we need to survive, that we cannot quit. We have families of our own and cannot devote 24 hours a day to be there to be the responsible person. So back in the day, the only other option was long-term care.
Yeah. Dying in a nursing home.
Right. And so I think it was, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was around the 80s, especially with the AIDS crisis. And that's actually how Francis House started, because Sister Kathleen was volunteering one-on-one with a person who was dying of AIDS. And nobody wanted to take care of, from fear, someone with
Mhm.
AIDS. And then these little pockets of people throughout our country, we've grown to know and discover, said there's got to be a better way. If somebody cannot be in their own home, what's the next best thing? So,
And completely across the country from you on the opposite coast at Sarah House in Santa Barbara, Sarah House started the same way as a
uh-huh,
home for men with HIV and AIDS who were being rejected by society and had nowhere to go and no one to care for them. And
mm-hmm,
Sarah House started on that same premise. And it's again, it's interesting to me to see such similar stories all
right,
across the country.
right. And yeah, so and then these homes, what's unusual and unique about these homes is, we say social model. What does that really mean? It means that we welcome these individuals into our home and we become their extended family. And our mission is to make each day and each moment the best it can possibly be for that person. And the answer to that question is for every single person,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Until their very last moment.
So, how did Francis House play a role in shaping this model and sharing it?
I think one of the reasons, and how it shaped other homes, was because it was one of the first, just so happened to be one of the first. So when people found out about us, we would get calls. We have this idea and we heard of what you do, and we want to try to do that here in Virginia or in Michigan. Or we even had a delegation from Japan come
Wow.
once to Francis House to visit, to learn from us. And I think that openness and that same belief of mission, of the purpose is to care and be present for a person and see the value in every person until their final moment. There was such trust there,
Mhm.
and support there, and we wanted this model to grow and continue, that people came and learned firsthand.
And for the people within your state, within
We had people from
upstate New York,
Virginia, Florida coming, and this was people who took a while. This was before all the internet, AI, where you press a button and learn about 50 places all at once. People were really researching. It was almost like a genealogist. They'd call and say, "We finally found you. We were hoping that something like this existed." Um, yeah, and it's been such a wonderful journey, first of all, to see Francis House grow from 2 beds to 4 beds to 6 beds to 2 homes with 8 bedrooms in each. Um, and to see these people who came, who had an idea, who now have homes of their own and have definitely given forward and helped other homes start.
and the 16-bed mission that you carry out right now is fantastic, but there are still lots of homes that are doing incredible work with 2 bedrooms. And you've
Yes.
got a lot of those 2-bedroom homes in upstate New York because of licensing and regulatory issues that each state has to figure out on their own if somebody wants to start a home. Because of that, that's been kind of the predominant model in your region, is these little 2-bedroom homes, correct?
Correct. Correct. Yep.
So one thing that makes Omega Homes unique is that they're deeply community driven. Can you
Mhm.
talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So a big part of Omega Homes are the volunteers.
Yeah.
Every makeup is a little bit different, but volunteers are essential to the model. They are there as support caregivers, as part of the family. And I think that brings such a beautiful, unique aspect to the care, because our volunteers, their heart is wanting to be there for that person, to make sure that person feels loved, to make sure that person is comfortable and whatever that person needs. They're not necessarily worried about what medicine they're on or that type of the care. They are there heart to heart, wanting to give whatever they can to support the person and support the family member. You know, we've seen a lot, especially throughout the decades, of the residents that have come to Francis House have been sicker. At the beginning when we first started, our average length of stay was around 28 days, and now I think it's down to 12 or less, depending on the month. And that change in the how sick the person was also changed the amount of time to give to caregivers as well. So as that person is sleeping and is comfortable, you are also there not only as a quiet presence, which I still contend sitting by a bedside, holding a hand, or just being there with a person is an incredible gift that they know, that they feel, that makes them feel safe and loved. But to also be there for the caregiver, for whatever that caregiver might need.
And we've found an interesting data point over the years, which is the number of our prior family members of guests who have returned to us to volunteer, whether
Mhm.
they're sharing a meal or actually taking a volunteer shift at the front desk or doing laundry or helping with guest care, or whether they're serving on our board or coming in and stuffing envelopes. But interestingly to me is that returning to the place where their loved one died is not a horrible idea to them. It's not like,
Right,
"Oh my gosh, I never wanna go back to that place where I lost my husband." It's not like that. They
right.
want to be here and continue to be a part of the community.
Yeah, I'm back home. I'm back home with this
Yeah.
family that I love.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
special.
it is. It is.
So you've been involved with Omega Homes from the development side. What actually goes into creating and sustaining a home like this?
Ugh.
The money, right?
Money. Everybody brings up the money first. And I enjoy helping people with development. I think it's a very misunderstood craft. It's an art and it's a science, and it is just a part of the ministry as the hands-on care.
And let's just
I
clarify for
believe
our listeners, when you say the word development, you're talking about fundraising.
I am talking fundraising is a component of development.
Okay.
Development is meeting other people, building relationships, discovering what their values are and how they want to make a difference in the world and helping them do it.
That's awesome. You sound like a pro.
I love it. I mean, I love the work that I do. And, every story is different for every home, but it usually has a similar foundation that is something like this. A person who had a loved one that they just journeyed with in their final moments, in their final weeks and months of life, or they worked as a caregiver professionally, either a nurse or a social worker who worked in a hospital, and through this experience said to themselves, there's got to be a better way for these people who are falling through the cracks. So they start talking to others. Now we have the internet. They get on the internet and they say, "Oh, this is our mission. This is what we have to do. They are all in with their heart and their passion and their soul. And then comes the moment, okay, now how do we actually do this? Oh,
Yeah.
wait, we're going to need money to do this, you know? And the skill set of not only the development and fundraising piece of it, but the development of a nonprofit is a job. I mean, it's a tough process that takes fortitude, that takes work, that takes the right people in the right places to help you. And it takes a lot of strategy
Yeah.
to do it well. And that is usually a piece that's missing when I first start to meet people who have this dream. And that's part of what I love connecting with our dreamers and our visionaries to help them put the pieces in place to start a home.
And there's this real challenge between, you're starting a business. A nonprofit is a business.
Right?
There's governance, there's legal issues, there's financial processes to create, and all of this has to happen before operations ever even start. And there's this real balance between it being way overcomplicated or not being too simplified and not formal enough to really operate professionally. So I
Absolutely.
always am amazed by kind of the pendulum swing between those edges.
Right. And if I had a message, it would be that it is crucial to have the right people in place to support you that have the skill set and the experience to help you form a nonprofit organization.
Oh, so I can't do this all by myself?
Right. Right. Which is hard. This is like your baby. That's the other thing too. It's like this idea that you have come up with, and heart to heart with another person or a group of people to move forward. And it takes patience. It takes a lot of patience to make sure you have the structures in place and the money um, to have in place before you open those doors.
And we all have to have the humility to surround ourselves with people that know all the things we don't know, to be able to say, I don't know how to do this. I need to find somebody that can help me. And you bring someone
Absolutely.
in instead of muddle through on your own.
Correct. Correct. And to reach out. And the other thing I love about working with nonprofits is and that development piece of bringing people in and seeing what their skills are and what they love to do is when you connect a person who has a skill set and knows they're making a difference. Whether it's they're a finance person, they know how to write a strategic plan, whatever that piece is, when you can connect that person to a mission that they believe in and they see the impact of what they're doing,
They're
the
hooked.
connect they're hooked and the
It's
connection will
very
always be
satisfying
there.
work.
Yes, and then they're happy, you're happy, win-win.
What do you think the biggest challenges people face in trying to start something new like this?
I think it is humility. It's funny you said that because humility is a word when I was thinking about this conversation today. You need to have humility for every aspect of a comfort care home, from when you're caring for somebody to have the humility to say, have a lot of experience in caring for someone, but I need to be patient and to listen and find out what this person needs, not what I think they need, all the way through when you're the organizational piece of it, right? And that structure piece of it. I think people get excited. And I think one of the big mistakes in fundraising is, oh, once everybody hears about us, they're all going to give money and we're going to be fine. We just need to start this. So, and they get a little ahead of themselves, not realizing that the art of development and fundraising is the donor also wants to know that they're making an impact. That trust has to be there, that what they're supporting and giving to will be there next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So it's not just about raising the money, it's about building those relationships, um, having that awareness,
Having
and
awareness,
then making sure, the right people in the right seats on the bus. It's huge.
which is
Um,
different when you're first starting as
sure,
opposed to 10 years down the line. So when you're starting a board and getting people involved, it's much different and a different skill set. Not only a different skill set, but it has to meet a need for that person. So there are people out there that love new nonprofits when it's all messy and you're trying to figure it out and you're spending so much time on structure and processes and bylaws and all that sort of stuff. And that they're good at it and they like it and they know they can make a difference, as opposed to someone who really likes a mature nonprofit and wants to come in and just focus on governance and visioning.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. And so let's just briefly talk about the money and how you have perceived the asks that you have made over the years for this kind of care. You talked earlier, like, who wants to talk about this? Who wants to talk about death and dying? So, how does that become attractive to a donor to invest in a home that provides that? What what makes that difference so that it can be effective and people don't turn away or screen it out as soon as they hear about a focus on illness or dying?
Right. Um, and often it's there's an education piece there. I think now it's hard to be clear about it because we've been around for 30 years. But in the beginning, it's the first reaction was, "Ooh, you do what? Oof. Who would ever wanna do
I
that?"
could
Like,
never do
"Ooh,
that.
ooh, yeah. Oh, God bless you." You know? When I think the core of the mission is the value of every person. So if you connect with someone who feels passionate about that every person is due dignity and respect, it's not something that you earn, it is something that is due you as a human being. And there is value in every single person, and that person has value till their very last breath. If you could connect with a person, that's the value piece I'm talking about.
Mhm.
When you get to know people in the community, and I usually start a conversation with, tell me what moves you. Tell me, outside of work and family, what makes your heart pitter patter. Like, what do you want? What's the difference you want to make in the world? And when there's any hint of everybody has value, everybody deserves to be loved, everybody deserves to feel like they belong, that they're a part of something, a family or a community, that's when you then connect the dots and say, that's beautiful. And might I share with you a place where that is happening in such a significant, sacred way every day?
Beautiful. And what is happening in communities where Omega Homes open? I mean, I have my answer to this, but I wanna hear yours. What do you think an entire community can be impacted by a little small home like this? From a cultural standpoint, from a caring standpoint, what have you seen happen?
I do. I do. I have seen a huge difference. I've seen people come together and they're connected in a way that is so special and so everlasting. When you go to the store and I have my Francis House bag with the logo on it, and I'm in
Mhm.
line at the grocery store, and the lady behind me says, "My mom was at Francis House."
Yeah.
And even better, I say, "Oh, I worked there, when was it? Oh, it was 15 years ago." And I say, "And what was her name?" You know, like, usually I can remember because I did a lot of the memorial lists.
Yep. Yep.
So usually, I can remember that, but there's a connection in a way, or a person says, I volunteered at Francis House. Oh, my mom was at Francis House. Oh, thank you for the work you did. There's this connection of we have been so lucky and blessed to be a part of something so special that we both have experienced and changed us.
Yeah.
Changed the person who we are because of that, the witnessing of that love and that journey, that it's just a connection in a such a special way that now there's barely a place I can go. And the other side benefit, I will say, which is another mission of mine, is the hope that people can just start talking about death and talking about their own death so that they can prepare for it and discover what they want and let their loved ones know that is also, I also get a lot, oh, you worked at Francis House, and then I hear stories of some of their loved ones that have died, whether they were at Francis House or not.
Yeah. Well, and it just reinforces to us how that impact is retained in everybody's memory, that
Right.
you remember that whole story of where you were and who was with you and what it felt like. And I truly believe that the impact that I've seen Clare House make in this community is one of spreading kindness and compassion and caring, and that we are held as something that this community is proud of because it is a locus of love and compassion, and that the community takes pride and has great affection for that.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
So, if we could switch a little bit to a more personal focus, in addition to your professional work, you've spent, I don't know, close to 2 decades or more than 2 decades in caring for your son.
23 years.
23 years. So, can you tell us about Aiden?
Yes. So I'm a mom of four. And Aiden came into my life 23 years ago.
Which order? What birth order?
He's the third. Yeah.
Okay.
Gavin, Gracie, Aiden, and Nolan. And no warning of the challenges he was going to have until he was born. So he does not have an overall diagnosis, which stumps all doctors, which is kind of fun. But he has severe both physical and developmental disabilities. He is full care. He can walk with a lot of assistance, a few steps. He does not talk. And 5 years ago, he lost his sight. And he is the happiest, most joyous, joy spreading person you have ever met in your life. So he is a gift in multiple ways. And, that changed the trajectory of the life we thought my husband and I were going to have with our family, and always better, says me. Um, 23 years ago. Yeah. So he's full care. So he is, really part of me and part of a great deal of my day every day.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so this was present from the moment he was born.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
He was in the ICU and on a ventilator for the first 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks on the ventilator, and then in the ICU. Isn't it nice that I can't remember exactly? That's a
Yeah,
good
kind
thing.
of. Yeah.
Um, for a couple months, but we've been back and forth for a lot of surgeries, both brain surgeries with his hydrocephalus. He had major throat surgery before he was even one. And most recently, not this recent Christmas, the Christmas before, he went from pneumonia, double pneumonia, to sepsis, to the ICU all of December and January, on a ventilator, off a ventilator, back on the ventilator, then home with care for a month after that, before March, when he really, life started to get a little back to normal, not fully, but a little bit back. Now he's bounced back, but every time there's something like that, we're never quite back to 100% of
Baseline.
where we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
we were.
And
Yeah.
how did he get through all of that? Did he keep his joy and his sunny personality during all those challenges?
He has the favorite thing in his world to do before he lost his sight was to hit a balloon back and forth. And we thought, and he loves the water. So every year in the summer, we go up to Fish Creek, which is in the Adirondacks. For those of you who don't know, in New York, the water never gets warm. So it's always freezing, even in August. But we're in there every day, at least twice, because he is so free in the water and he loves it so much. And he loves music, especially 50s music. Elvis is his favorite. Um, James Brown, Chubby Checker, you name it, Bobby Darin.
Wow.
So when he lost his sight, I was really nervous because I thought, now what? He can't see us. He can't see. He loves Mickey Mouse. He can't see the TV. Um, and you really won't notice the difference in his happiness. You put on Elvis, and we're smiling and rocking and rolling, and yeah, happy is his baseline.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So the rest of your family rolls with whatever.
Yeah, there's one of the gifts that I have been given is that I do not have any regrets or guilt. Like I don't really care what happened in Aiden's development for him to have these issues. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't think about it. I don't worry about, what could I have done? And I know a lot of other parents um, that have special needs kids, that's a huge burden in their life. Never, that doesn't bother me. It doesn't matter to me. And I do not feel he is any burden on this family. Told the kids when they were little, he's part of our family and every family's different. And guess what? You're changing diapers. You're gonna help feed them. This is part of our family. This is what you do. There's kids that are 5 years old, in some third world countries spending all day carrying gallons of water back and forth to their home just so
Right.
they have the water. We each have our thing, and that this is just the way it is. So I don't feel that that has taken anything away from their lives either. And I have two of my kids. My daughter is now in her fourth year of teaching, third grade, and she's getting her master's with a concentration in special ed. And my 18-year-old just started college, also going for a degree in secondary education, middle school and high school with special ed.
Wow. That
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're not running away from it.
They are not. They are not.
Wow. Um, how do you think these years as a caregiver, granted it's a little bit different kind of caregiving than what we are experiencing usually in a defined amount of time in end of life care.
Hmm.
How's that shaped your understanding of compassion and patience?
There's been a couple times when we thought it might be
And well,
the
sure, it
end of
sounds
his
like
life.
just recently.
Yeah, just recently for sure. Being on the other side of the bed, as they say, um, I've learned a lot. I think that humility that we talked about earlier, I think when you're a caregiver and that's part of who you are naturally, and that is what you do professionally, and maybe, our volunteers who come because they just want to help, um, it really does take someone to put what they know aside because we all think we know best. You know, you're a nurse, Kelly. You
Sure.
know, you've had a lot of experience, and I don't say that from like a conceit, like, oh, they think they're so great and they know everything. It's just what you do every day, and you have the experience in it. And in cases like this, when this presents itself in front of you, this is the best course of action. And I think when it comes to what I've experienced with Aiden, and I've seen the similar experience in people who are dying, you really need to stop and say, first, let me listen, and first, let me see who this person really is. I think, like Aiden is 6 foot tall, but he only weighs 122 pounds. He's very, very thin. And when you first look at him, I guess the first thing people think of, and doctors and nurses think of, oh, this kid has cerebral palsy and developmental delay, so he really doesn't know what's going on. Um, and that's the first thing people think of instead of, here's Aiden.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really challenging not to have a need to label
Yes.
and a diagnosis, a label, whatever that is. I was hesitant about how to refer to him because I don't know what your preferred um, words are, and that seems to be something that a lot of people care a lot about, is that you use the correct words to identify me,
Right.
or
Yeah.
any sort of uniqueness that somebody might have.
Yeah.
um does that get weird sometimes?
No. That's part of me too. I mean, I don't have that either. That's another gift that I have. I call my special guy, my son with special needs. That part doesn't, and I know special needs is starting to become a not
When it
proper
is hard to
terms.
keep up with what is the current appropriate way
It
to
really
reference
is.
someone.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when people are dying, like, whoever you are as a person, that's who you are, whether you have a special needs child or not, whether you have a loved one that is dying or not. So if you are open and things kind of slide off your back and that's kind of your personality, that's who you are. Plus, you have somebody you're caring for with special needs, or plus, you have somebody who is dying. If you are uptight, don't trust people, and kind of can be a little bit of a pain to others, that's who you are. That's not gonna change because you're caring,
You're
you're also a caregiver. So
right.
that's why I think it's so important for people to, especially with Aiden, because where the big connection is, like, our goal for Aiden is every day that he's happy, that it's the best day it could be. I
Yeah.
I, you know, I don't have any visions of, my big goal is for him to walk across the room with just a walker. No, doesn't matter. And when we ask, like, he graduated from high school this year and has started in a day program, what's your biggest goal? That he's happy, that he's smiling, that it's the best day he can have, that he feels loved,
It's beautiful.
right? And what does that look like for him? It's listening to Mickey Mouse, reading stories. He loves when people are just present. He feels it, like when we're in the hospital, and somebody walks in the room, he knows immediately somebody's in the room besides me,
Yeah. Does he
and
have a favorite book?
um it's a Mickey Mouse book that you press and you sing all the songs. That's his very favorite book. I buy 15 of them every year. So when they get so worn away where you can't push the buttons anymore, I just come up and just get
Get
another
another one.
book. Yeah, he loves Magic Tree House too. We're really good at
Nice.
he loves those as well too, but it's something so beautiful in what he has taught me is the connection and the sacredness, some might say the sacrament of the present moment.
Mm.
Um, my father-in-law has dementia, and it has progressed quite a bit over the last few years. He has such a special connection with Aiden, always has. So when there's a lot of people now, it's a little bit too much for him. So if we're having a gathering of our family in our house and it's a little bit too much, and all of a sudden you look around and he's not there, he's in Aiden's bedroom and they can just sit next to each other and
Mm.
hug each other. Time stands still,
Yeah.
and there's just such a special connection there. And that's what presence is for every
Oh.
person.
Resilience is a big word anymore that we talk about in caregiving. Can you talk a little bit about building that quality of resilience that's happened within your family, with you, with all the kids, with your husband, with Aiden himself, of surviving in this, day where there may be a new challenge for him on a regular basis?
Right. I think it's probably around the word of expectation, of what we expected life was going to be and how that has changed. And I have to say, um, I guess there's some grieving in that, but I'm not the type of person that says, oh, right now, Aiden should be in college. And that he was never going to be in college. Like, that's just not
Mm.
his life. And why would I compare it to that? I think
You
some people,
never counted milestones that you were missing.
yeah, I know a lot of people do, and I have some friends with special needs kids that really grieve over that. Um, but I think part of it is he's teaching us something every day, that in all of the suffering, there's something so beautiful in that. I mean, I really believe in the moments of greatest suffering are the moments of greatest joy. I've seen that in with Aiden. I've seen that, in the ministry of Francis House and in other homes that we've gotten to know. And I think it's part of trusting one another. I think no one really can understand the trust that it takes to let somebody take care of your loved one who is
Mm.
so, I mean, so vulnerable. I mean, I think Aiden, this is about as vulnerable as it gets. He can't talk. He could never tell me if something happened. He is completely dependent on whoever's taking care of him. I make that similarity too with, people that were given the honor to take care of too. And unless you are in that moment or have experienced that moment, it's really hard to understand when I know every movie makes, like if he lifts his eyebrow, what that means. I just, you know, just feel it. I don't know how to describe it. I just know, like, he's an extension of me because I'm just with him so much and caring for him so much, that to say, okay, I trust you to take care of him and I'm going to walk out of the room or I'm going to leave for the night, that is beyond trust that I can even describe how hard and difficult that is. And there's some people that I have to say in all of these years that I thought, I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving this room until the shift's over.
Well, I really
Um,
appreciate that perspective, Beth. That is such a eye-opening understanding of what it is like to just go through daily life, but also to extrapolate that to the people that we take care of in Omega homes, and how families struggle to let us make decisions about medications. Is it
mhm.
time now? Is it not time? Are they suffering? Is this pain? Is this restlessness? What is it? When they've been reading that and living that in that relationship with that person, and sharing that caregiving responsibility, there's so many emotional layers to that as well.
Yeah, and it's work. Like, the one thing I will say, so because Aiden cannot speak for himself, um, either my husband or I were by his bedside 24 hours a day. We just took shifts every day for 2 months, and that's just the way it was. Um,
While
and
he was in the hospital
while he
recently.
was in the ICU, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting to build relationship over and over again with a new shift coming on. And it's such a tightrope to, this was my experience that I'll share. I'm sure I'm not alone. to build trust with the caregiver. And I would say, this is what I got used to saying every time there was a new caregiver. I would be as open and joyful as I could possibly be, still on even on the days that I felt like crap because I'm, thought this is the first time this person is seeing me. And I would say, I'm so excited you're here and I want you to know a little bit about Aiden. And I would just share a few things about him.
I
And then
love
I would
that.
say, I really know him, but I don't know the situation we're in and where it's going to go.
Perfect.
You have been in this situation with a lot of different people many times, but you don't know Aiden 100%. So I know I'm going to be right sometimes and wrong sometimes, and I know you're going to be right sometimes and wrong sometimes. So if we could just be open and honest and communicate, I'm a communicator. So if we could just talk this all through, we'll figure it out together.
Did you get good responses from those interactions?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Not 100%, because I could see, and we all have a BS meter. I think the hardest thing is when somebody would look at me and say, "Oh, yes, I'm here for you." And I know they didn't really mean it.
Yeah.
When it
Yeah.
was just like, "Oh, that's what I have to say because it's my job." Um, that's heartbreaking and worrying. And then another shift of not sleeping because you want to be up. It's hard. And this is the humility I'm talking about because it's hard for somebody who's good at what they do and they know what they do to come in and hear that. For me to say, you're not going to be right all the time and I'm not going to be right all the time. You have to really be humble to accept that. A lot of times I got to eye roll like, yeah, you're just going to be a pain in the butt kind of mom and this is going to be tough. But I meant it when I said it. And it takes that togetherness and that building of relationship to really understand who the person is. Period, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great takeaway for both sides,
Mhm.
for for the caregiver family member side and for the helper side.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you would want people to know about providing support to caregivers that maybe the average person, we just aren't aware of it?
I think to ask and listen first before telling some person, um, about the care. I am a very touchy-feely person. I don't mind at all when someone touches me. But in my last experience in the hospital, um, the hospice team got, involved, and that very first time, God bless her, and I know she does good work, but it's a learning moment. When she came into the room, first of all, the first thing she said was, "Hi, now I'm from the hospice team, but it's really not a bad thing, and that doesn't mean like he's dying right now or anything, but I'm really just here to support you." I thought, "Oh." And we wonder why people don't wanna talk about death. Um,
Right.
and then she walked over and put her arm around me and gave me a really tight hug and said, "I'm here for you. We're gonna get through this." And I thought,
Ooh,
"Ew,
yeah.
what in the world?" Like, thank God she didn't do that to my husband first. Thank God I was the one closest to the door. Because 'Cause we'll say opposites attract, that's not him at all. But I thought, "Wow, you don't know me at you just walked in the room," and that's that patience, that humility, and let's be honest, there's work to be done, and I get that, you know what I mean? We're not the only person in there, and there's residents that you have to take care of in your homes, but if you could just stop yourself for a minute, just to really just take a breath and say first, "Tell me about Aiden.
Yeah.
I wanna know. I wanna help you the best way I can." And just be quiet for a minute and just let the person share. You'll learn so much as opposed to, "I'm sorry you have to be, we're in this situation, but I'm glad I'm here for you." And blah, 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 blah. It doesn't, well, people like me probably could tell I'll get the words in I have no problem interrupting someone and getting the words in, but there's so many people who are not that way and will never say anything unless they're really given some time and some space,
And
to
that is
share.
such good advice for also for grieving people,
Mhm.
because people always say they don't know what to say to someone who's grieving. And what you say is exactly what you said. Tell me about your person.
Mhm.
Tell me about them, and
Mhm.
let them talk about the person that they're actually grieving before you start trying to help them move through and navigate that grieving. And that's, I think, one of the things that people don't take enough of a pause and inquire about who the person was that they've lost.
Right? Because in that, like, when I think about all the years at Francis House and just the gift of that, first of all, that's humbling in and of itself because, I think, how did I get to be one of the last people that this person was gonna talk to
Yeah.
or be with? And the stories of their lives are gift upon gift, right? Because everybody we meet has something to teach us and knows more about something than us. And just to hear the stories. I mean, I used to write the newsletter stories about the resident spotlights. That's what some of my favorite moments. And I remember um, this one particular couple, and they had been married for 60 some years. And so I sat down and I said, "So tell me about your life." And her husband was sitting on the other side of the bed, and she talked for hours. And then I came back the next day and she talked some more. And not only her just looking at me and telling me about how they fell in love and where they spent their vacations, and the way he looked at her while she was sharing her story was so beautiful. And then when she finished, she started to cry and she said to me, "I just can't believe you've been here this long. Thank you she said, "Thank you so much for just listening to my story." And she was crying. I thought, you know, the gift was yours to me, for sure. And every story is completely different and every story is so unique. And then you carry that with you,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. What a gift.
Yeah.
Okay, so the final personal question I want to ask is about members of your family that you didn't mention, and that would be the donks.
Yes, we're also animal lovers, so we've had various numbers of dogs and cats, and we have miniature donkeys. We have 3 of them that I'm surprised at them this quiet during our talk together
I
because
was really hoping we'd get to hear them verbalize a little bit,
be
vocalize.
because it's about dinner time and they are like outside dogs, so they start braying just to let us know. They'll watch the house, and if they see we're up in the morning and I turn my bedroom light on, they are immediately braying
Oh,
and
that's
asking for
awesome.
their breakfast. They're great loves. Yeah.
Fun.
They're
So
doing good.
fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Beth Lynn, for sharing your passion and your stories.
We're done already?
Yeah.
Oh,
Gotta go.
all
Gotta
right.
go.
All
What we've
right.
talked about today is more than nonprofit work. It's about what kind of communities we want to build. Omega Homes exists because people believe that dignity doesn't end when life becomes fragile. And your work and your life as a caregiver remind us that compassion isn't just an ideal. It's a choice we make every day for the people around us. And sometimes the most important thing we can offer another person is simply to be there.
Mhm.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for all you do.
Right back at you.
All right.
This is The Deep End, and I'm Kelley Scott. Thank you for diving deep with us.